For this tutorial you will need your selected yarn. I'm using this Sorella yarn, which is from a while ago. She does collections, so it's a hand dyed yarn. And I'm also using Stylecraft Special DK in white, so I'm pairing those together. I'm going to be using a 4.5mm crochet hook with this yarn, but obviously you can adapt that to whatever yarn you are using. You will also need a pair of scissors and a darning needle for sewing in your ends. I will leave all of this information in the description box below, so click that show more button. You will find a link to my website with the blog post, with the written instructions, everything that you're going to need, so make sure that you check that out. Okay, so this is what the work looks like. Now I just want to talk about colour changes before we actually move into the tutorial. I have changed my colour every 2 rows. So from row 3 we're going to start changing our colour. If you want to, you could do this in one colour if you wanted to. But if you are going to change colour, you want to make sure that you're doing it every 2, 4, 6, etc. rows. So it needs to be in an even number, just because of the way that the stitches fall. So just bear that in mind. You can change every 2 rows, every 4 rows, every 6 rows, 8, whichever. Just make sure it's an even number and you'll get a slightly different result. Okay, so let's get started with this tutorial, but before we do, if you like it, make sure that you give me a thumbs up and leave me a comment, and also don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this. Okay, so to begin we're going to create our slip knot, and you can do this in whichever method you prefer. And we're going to create a foundation chain. So the foundation chain is going to be in multiples of 3, so that's yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through. That's 3, 4, 5 and 6, and you're going to build your chain until you reach whichever width you desire. So just making sure that they're in multiples of 3. Once you've got your correct width, we're then going to add an additional 3, and that's to account for turning your work. So go ahead, build your foundation chain to whichever chain you want, as long as it's a multiple of 3, and then meet me back in just a moment. Okay, so I have just done a chain of 24 stitches, which is a multiple of 3. And as I mentioned before, we're going to add an additional 3. This is to account for turning. So another 1, 2 and 3. We're now going to do row 1. So row 1, we're going to start off by doing a double crochet in the second chain from the hook. So not the one that's on the hook, we never count this one. We have 1 and 2. And as I say, we're doing a double crochet. Remember, I'm working in UK terms. This is a single crochet in the US. So we go straight into that stitch, yarn over and pull through. You'll have 2 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, into the next stitch, yarn over, pull through, 2 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through 2. And you're going to work this into every stitch all the way along. So go ahead, pause the video, work into those stitches, and then meet me back once you're ready. Okay, so I have just worked those double crochets across the chain, and what you will have is one less than what your original chain was. So I chained 24 chains and then added an additional 3 for turning, so that's 27. So that's 27 minus 1 is 26. So whatever your original chain was, including the turning chains, is minus 1. So I have 26 stitches in my row because I chained 27. So just make a note of that, because that's how many stitches will be in your row, and obviously depending on how many you've done will depend on how many you have now. So for row 2 we're going to chain 1 and turn. Your chain 1 does not count as a stitch, so we ignore that. And then we're going to double crochet into the first stitch and across the whole of the work. So we double crochet into this very first stitch at the base of the chain 1, and that will be our first stitch. So that's 1, 2 and 3, and you're simply going to pause the video, work into each of those stitches. I will work those 26 stitches for my sample piece, but you can do the stitches that you've worked out that you're doing. So pause the video and then meet me back for row 3. So this is the end of row 2, so pretty simple at the moment. We're going to move on to row 3, and this is where we're starting to build our pattern. So these first 3 rows are the foundation of the rest of the work that we're going to be doing. So for row 3, we want to chain 1 and turn our work, and then we're going to do a double crochet into those first 2 stitches. So remember, this chain 1 does not count as a stitch, so our first stitch is just here. So we'll go 1 and then 2. Now this next stitch is slightly different because we're going to be working into 2 rows below. So if we have a look at our stitch just here, our next stitch, we want to be looking at the stitch that's 2 rows below. So we've already worked into these first 2 stitches. This is the stitch that we're looking at now. So what we're going to do here is a front post treble crochet. So remember, that's UK terms. This will be a front post double crochet in the US. And what we do here is, I'll just show you first, we're going to be working around that post. So just to confirm, we've got our first 2 stitches here, 1 and 2, which we've already worked into with these double crochets, the ones below. So we're looking at the next stitch, we're following it down to 2 rows below, and we're finding that post. So we're going to be working around this post like so. The hook goes from front to back and then back to front. So you're going to yarn over, insert your hook from front to back, back to front around that post, yarn over, pull through. You'll have 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through 2. You'll have 2 loops on the hook and yarn over, pull through 2. So that stitch is acting as this next stitch across. So you'll have an empty stitch here, which we call a skip stitch or a missed stitch. And then we're going to continue with our pattern repeat. So the pattern repeat for this row is 2 double crochets and then a front post treble crochet around 2 stitches below. So we've got double, double, and then a front post treble crochet. So as I say, we don't work into that next empty stitch because that is classing as that stitch. And we go straight into the next stitch with a double crochet. 1 and 2. And then we'll do that front post treble crochet again. So we'll look where this next stitch is, follow it down 2 rows below and find that next stitch, yarn over, go front to back, back to front, yarn over and pull through, 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through 2, 2 loops on the hook, and yarn over, pull through 2. Miss that stitch, and then double crochet, and repeat. So you're going to repeat that all the way to the end of this row. This is actually the most tricky row. Once we start building, this actually gets a lot easier. But you want to repeat that all the way to the end, pause the video, and then meet me back when you're ready. Okay, so once you've worked that pattern repeat over and over, once you've done your last front post treble crochet, you should find that you have 2 double crochets remaining, which you're going to work into, like so, and there you have finished your 3rd row. So at this point, you're going to decide whether or not you want to continue with the same colour or if you want to change colours. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, you could change colours if you wanted to, but you would have to do that in an even number, so every 2, 4 or 6 rows from row 3. So if you want to change colours here, you could simply just go back a stitch and then start your double crochet but bring in your new colour. So we're going to pick up our second colour, and instead of yarning over and pulling through to finish off this stitch, what we do is yarn over and pull through your second colour. We can then start row 4, and then this is the beginning of the pattern repeat. So what we're going to do here is chain 1 and turn our work, and then we're going to do a double crochet into the first stitch and in each stitch across. So we're going to double crochet into that very first stitch, into the next stitch, so that's your first 2 double crochets, and then this next one will be the front post treble, but we'll still go into it the same. And then because I have 26 stitches to begin with, I will have 26 stitches in this row as well. So go ahead and double crochet all the way along, working in each stitch, and then meet me back for row 5. So here is what my work is looking like at the end of row 4. We're now ready to move on to row 5. So we're going to chain 1 and turn our work, and then we're going to essentially do the same as row 3, but it will just work out slightly differently. So we're going to do 1 double crochet into the first 2 stitches, 1 and 2, and then when we get to this third stitch, this is where the front post treble crochet will sit below from what we did in row 3. So what we do here is we yarn over and then we go behind that stitch. So it's really easy to see this time, and do our front post treble crochet, miss that stitch, and then double crochet, and then front post treble crochet around that stitch from 2 rows below. Double crochet, and then front post treble around that next stitch. So you're just having to remember that when you do that front post treble crochet, you don't then work into the next stitch, or into that stitch that you've missed. So you skip a stitch and then double crochet, and front post treble around that front post treble from 2 rows below. And this is what it starts to look like. So it's absolutely beautiful. So go ahead, work that all the way to the end. You'll find that you have those 2 double crochets left at the end, and then meet me back and I'll show you how to do your repeat. Okay, so I am at the end of this row now, and this is just looking absolutely stunning. This stitch looks so gorgeous when paired with like a simple colour like this white, so a basic colour, and then a hand-dyed yarn, because you just get the most stunning effect. So I have just got 1 last double crochet to finish here. Remember I said you can change colour every 2 rows, so that's what I'm going to do now. You could change every 4 or 6 rows if you wanted to make the colour stripes larger. But what I'm going to do here is insert my hook into that stitch, drop my yarn, and you notice that I didn't tie off this yarn from 2 rows previously, because I'm just going to go ahead and float that yarn up like so. Because I am repeating every 2 rows, you can do this and it just saves sewing in your ends. So you go ahead and chain 1, turn your work, and then we're going to do that 1 double crochet into each stitch. Now because we have this yarn just here, which I'm going to float up again, I'm going to go underneath that and crochet in, so it just sits a little bit neater and sits out this way, ready to float it up again. So just 1 double crochet into each stitch all the way along the row. My stitch count is 26, so that is what I will have again in this row. So I'm going to go ahead and work this row again, which is a repeat of row 4, and then come back and show you once more how to do the repeat of row 5. So pause the video, work your way along, and then meet me back in a moment. Okay, so at the end of this row, we're going to chain 1 and turn our work and repeat row 5. So we're going to double crochet into those very first 2 stitches, 1 and 2, and then it's that front post treble crochet around the front post treble crochet 2 rows below. So this time it's this coloured stitch here. So yarn over behind that stitch and then work your treble crochet, which of course is double crochet in the US. We then miss that stitch that we've worked over, double crochet, front post, treble crochet, double crochet, front post, treble crochet. You'll work that all the way to the end. Remember that you'll have those last 2 double crochets at the end of your row, and then you'll just simply keep repeating. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build a few more rows and then come back and show you what this is built like. Okay, so I have built a few more rows now, and this is what it's looking like. It looks absolutely beautiful. Now, once you have repeated your work to the desired height, you just want to make sure that you are finishing with your first colour, and then also add in 1 more row of row 4, so just a row of double crochet, and that will ensure that your end, your beginning and your end match like so. Otherwise this end might look a little bit shorter, but it looks absolutely beautiful. I'm sure you can agree. It's got a beautiful dense texture to it. This is the back, what the back looks like, so it looks pretty good from the back as well. And this can be used on so many different projects. I just think it's absolutely beautiful. So I really hope that you have enjoyed this tutorial. Don't forget I have linked in the description box below the blog post where you can find everything, including the written instructions. If you have enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up, leave me a comment, share with your friends, and also don't forget to subscribe to my channel and click that bell button to be notified of when my new videos go live. Thank you so much for watching, and I shall see you again next time. Bye!